بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, in today's talk we'll continue the era of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anh. Last week we were continuing our topic in regards to the judiciary in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anh, and we talked about specifically the qualities a judge should have. And today, inshallah, we will talk about the same subject. We're going to continue, inshallah, but we'll be discussing that how the judgments were passed in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, what role Umar played, and how Sahaba radwanullah alayhim or Tabi'een around him, he followed the rule implemented by Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. And as we know that the Umar's era was over 10 years long. And obviously there were many cases came across, whether they were directly to Umar bin Khattab or to the governors under Umar bin Khattab and the judges. So that will be almost impossible here to talk about all the cases that occurred. So we like to have at least a taste of it, that how the judgments were passed, and so we can understand that when we continuously say that these things like Islam is a comprehensive way of life, Islam provides the answers for all our problems, so we should have some idea that, okay, so how did, for example, the judiciary work? We already talked about quite a bit about the economy in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. So now we're talking about the judiciary aspect of it. And today, inshallah, we'll kind of conclude the talk on the judiciary aspect. Now, when it comes to the sources used by Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu for passing judgments, it's no different than what was used in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and then Abu Bakr. Of course, the difference with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was directly guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Jibreel, through the wahi. Now, when we talk about the judgments passed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he is guided by wahi, is different from Abu Bakr and Umar and later on any of the people who will be in that position, because they go back to the Quran and Sunnah. And of course, there are some ahkam are direct, qat'i, there is no differences of opinions. Others may have difference of opinion, and also the issues that come up which never came up in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali and so on and so forth. Now those new issues require the understanding of the new issue and going back to Quran and Sunnah and to understand what Allah Azza wa Jal would have wanted from us in those rulings. Now, of course, there can be mistakes made by anyone. We are not talking about that there's a prophets among us. Of course, Rasulullah was the last messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we are not talking about angels going to descend and they will be ruling over us without making any mistakes. So humans will be making judgments as well when it comes to judiciary. The question is, what is the basis used? And that's the key thing. The basis used has to be correct. And in the time of Umar, we see is that things starts getting more formalized. Formalized in the sense of, yes, we understand the Quran and Sunnah is a source to go back to. And in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was very evident, or at the time of Abu Bakr also. And the Sahaba who directly learned from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were still there. They were present. So many of them, they did not have to know, for example, learn the language again to understand what certain words mean, certain phrases mean, in which context. And for some of them, they were the cause of revelation was also evident for them. So hence, when the time of Umar, when the Islam started spreading and more and more people were coming into Islam from different backgrounds and the regions were expanding, the need of formalization came up. Hence you see some of the things are formalized. Doesn't mean that things changed. And this is something we should understand. It's not as if Umar was doing the bid'ah. It's more of a formalization of the very same thing. For example, we understand, let's say, we are all here in this room, are all experts in mathematics. So, if there certain equations are given to us, we probably can look at the equation, we can know what should be the solution of the equation. While if you want to teach somebody new who's coming in to learn math, you have to show him the process of how to solve the equation. So same thing when we talk about understanding the deen that was revealed to Rasulullah ﷺ, and Sahaba were around them, they understood the language, in the language the Quran was revealed and the Hadith was revealed. So for them to understand was straightforward. They were experts in the language. Rasulullah ﷺ was among them. So many of those usul we talk about, the fundamentals, they were already there. But as Islam was expanding and people were going a little bit away from the time of Rasulullah ﷺ, the formalization was needed. And hence we see, it's always the case among the Muslim Ummah, whatever the need was, people rose up at that time and fulfilled that need. As we have discussed in the past, I'll just quickly, for a reminder, I'll mention. So we see in the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, when Rasulullah passed away, it's one of the greatest loss for the Ummah. But Abu Bakr was the one who made sure the Ummah is able to cope with that. And then the issue of Ridda came up, apostasy, or the Quran, many of the Huffaz were martyred, so preservation of the Quran came up, preservation of the Hadith later on came up, preservation or making sure the usul are set properly, the preservation of the Arabic language, so on and so forth. Whenever Ummah has an issue, people rose up and they took care of the issue. And inshallah, what the Ummah is going through, the struggle today, Ummah will rise up again. For example, whatsoever is happening around the world and the miseries that we are seeing, inshallah, Ummah will rise up again and take care of it. We should always ask to ourselves, what did we do in those circumstances? You know, I was giving a lecture a couple of days ago, and we were discussing the life of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu over there. And we see how wise, steadfast, and firm Abu Bakr Siddiq was in resolving the issues. And we find similar things for Umar, Uthman, and Ali, and Hassan, and so on and so forth. But see, it's very easy when you are looking back and reading the history and to see who was at right and who was at wrong. The question should be, when you are in that kind of a situation, how do you behave? So when we are in different kind of tests that we are going through today, how are we behaving? That's the question we should be asking. Looking back is easy, because you see the consequences and all those things, especially talking about 1400 years ago something happened. So you can see really the long period of time and you can see consequences. And probably in some cases you may not even see consequences the way you would be hoping. But always, always, always we should remember that if we are looking for the correctness of our action, it has to be corrected back to the wahi, to the revelation. وَمَن يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ فَازَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. Whosoever obeys Allah and His Messenger, they are the successful ones. This is the great victory. This is the great success. And that's what we should be aiming for. So in the time of Umar, we see the formalization happen, and we see that how he made sure the people are judging by the Quran, the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ijma'. Ijma' means the consensus. Of course, in time of Umar al-Khattab, we're talking about Umar kept all the Sahaba as close as possible to him. He let them go for certain work that needs to be done, but in general, he wanted them back to Medina. So that stabilized the deen. And so the ijma' was another, consensus was another way of doing it. And then the qiyas. When we say qiyas is an analogy of an existing hukum or ruling from the Quran and Sunnah, and you are making an analogy based on the reasoning of the rule, the hukum that was revealed. So in the time of Umar, that was also, he made sure the judges around him, they are making sure that they are going through these sources for their judgments. And of course the opinions of the previous Sahaba's opinions, of course the best of the opinions we can think of. So these are, and Umar was very adamant on the issue of the shura as well, which is consulting the people. But we have to distinguish between source of evidence and an action used to get to the source of evidence. Okay, what I mean by that? The shura or consultancy is not the source of ruling. You don't say if people get together and majority of them say something, so that should be right, that must be right. That's not the Islam, that's not the way the ruling works in Islam. Consultancy about to understand what Allah wants from us. So you are asking advice from people who are worthy of advice as well, of course. See, you cannot say that the one who knows and who doesn't know, and both of them come and give an opinion that their opinions are equal now. Yeah? That makes no sense. Okay. So Umar radiallahu anh, he used to convey the messages to his judges. Like one of the report mentioned by Sha'bi, he narrates that Qadi Shuraih, we talked about last week a bit. Qadi Shuraih was, even though he was born in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in Yemen, and he became a Muslim, but he never met Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But he was a Qadi in the time of Abu Bakr and then Umar, and later on as well. So Umar said to me, Qadi Shuraih said, Umar said to me, judge in accordance with what you know of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Quran. If you do not know of anything in the book of Allah, then judge according to what you know of the judgment of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then judge according to what you know from the guided Imams. If you do not know of the judgment of the guided Imams, then try to work it out yourself and consult knowledgeable and righteous people. See, when he's talking about that, this is talking about making an ijtihad from using the sources of Islam. It's not, mind does not become the source of rule of the hukum. It's not mind. Mind is used to understand what the creator of the heavens and the earth wants from us. And this is a main thing to understand. We as Muslim, we are slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We submit to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for that we have to know what Allah wants from us. And that we can only know from the wahy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Similarly, there's another report from Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. He said that Umar ibn Khattab said when he was on the minbar, O people, in the case of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, personal opinion was always correct, because what Rasulullah said was always correct, because Allah guided him. But in our case, it is speculation and conjecture, because when we are making judgment, we can be right or wrong. So he said, and he said this about his own opinion. He said, this is Umar's opinion. If it is right, it is from Allah, and if it is wrong, it is from Umar radiyallahu anhu. Okay? And Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, when Umar was appointed as a Khalifa, he said, I feel too shy before Allah to reject anything that Abu Bakr said. Umar also confirmed that in this in another letter to Shuraih, Qadi Shuraih said, judge according to what Allah's book says. If there is nothing in the book of Allah, then according to Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If there is nothing in the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then judge according to judgments passed by the righteous. So that's about the Quran and the Sunnah that Umar al-Khattab dictated, told the people who were under him making the judgments. About the ijma', which is basically, to understand this first, what is an ijma'? Ijma' is a consensus, and there is a difference of opinion about what is the definition of ijma'. Some of the scholars, they agree on ijma' sahaba, which is of course the highest level of ijma', right? All the sahaba agreed on something, which is the best generation we are learning about. Now, some of the Aimma, they say, is the ijma' Ahl Medina, the people of Medina's ijma' or the consensus. Some say it's the ijma' of Ahlul Bayt. And we talked about Ahlul Bayt in the past. What is the definition of Ahlul Bayt and all that stuff. Now, and the other group says it's the ijma' of the ulama. And there's another group that says, of the scholars, it's the ijma' al-ummah. But when you dig deeper, you realize that, what does it mean by ijma' al-ummah? Are you going to get the ijma' of 2 billion people? And then when you dig deep about what does it mean by ijma' ulama also, you find that they will say, no, the ulama who agree with us, or my manhaj. And they stay within that manhaj then. And so on and so forth. So obviously, the one that there is no difference of opinion we find is ijma' of the Sahaba. Because ijma' of the Sahaba, if you look at it, it's a kind of contains all anyways. Because ijma' Sahaba is ijma' of the Ummah also automatically at that time. It's ijma' of the ulama also of that time. It's ijma' Sahaba anyways. So yes, you will not call it ijma' Ahlul Bayt, but Ahlul Bayt are part of the Sahaba. So that also becomes part of ijma' Sahaba. And so forth. Ijma' Ahl Medina will be the same thing. So ijma' Sahaba is the qat'i, that there is no doubt in that this is accurate, this is correct. So anyways, I just want to give some idea about when we say ijma', what does it mean by that. So if the judge could not find anything in the case of the Quran Sunnah, then they go to the ijma'. It's not like you put the Quran Sunnah on the side and looking for the ijma' of the people or ijma' of the ulama, whichever way a scholar is looking into ijma' Sahaba. And of course, ijma' of the Sahaba cannot be against the Quran Sunnah. They would not go against the Quran and Sunnah. They are the one who conveyed to us the Quran and the Sunnah altogether as a whole generation. Okay. So this is considered a third source of Islamic legislation. And why ijma' Sahaba becomes important is, and definite. Look, if we do not take the ijma' of the Sahaba, in a sense what we are saying here is, you are questioning the hadith and the Quran itself also. Because that's the ijma' of the Sahaba who conveyed a hadith and the Quran to us. It's the generation who passed that to us. Let's not forget that. So, it is proven by many of the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ also that ijma' is something that we should be looking for. Okay, and one thing is to understand is, if there is an ijma' cannot be undone. Okay? What I mean by that is, like there is an example, it was mentioned by Ibn Abbas asked Uthman, and he said, because the Quran, when it talks about the issue of inheritance, and in the issue of inheritance, it's been mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about a mother, that in the case of, I'm looking for the verse. Anyways, so the word used is ikhwa in there. If the ikhwa is present, then the mother gets 1/6. Otherwise, she can get 1/3. Now, Ibn Abbas says, you know in your language, ikhwa is a jama', mean it's more than 3 or more than 3. While in Arabic, the word for 2 is akhawan. Yeah, not ikhwan, akhawan. Akhawan is the dual. In Arabic, it's not just singular and plural, rather singular, dual, and plural. So because Allah says ikhwa, so He's saying 3 or more. So if there are 2, then the mother should get 1/3. But the ijma' was, the understanding of the Sahaba about this issue was that whether it's 2, it will still be considered as that mother will be getting 1/6. Hence, Uthman said we cannot undo the ijma'. So ijma' is not undone later on by any other understanding or something. Okay, an analogy is something which is referred as the qiyas, and the qiyas is a rule when there is a parallel hukum exist. In that case, you go along with the parallel hukum because the direct hukum is not there. Now, we'll talk about a little bit, inshallah, about how the judgments were passed. Umar was very clear about that when the case is brought up, it should be made sure that the proof is provided by the plaintiff. Okay? Because there are two people are fighting, or one person brought a case against somebody else. The burden of proof is on the plaintiff. It's not like this, people left and right start accusing people, and the one who's accused, he has to bring a proof now for everything people are accusing him of. Rather, the one who has raised the issue, he is the one who has to bring the proof for that. So Umar wrote to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he says, proof is to be provided by the plaintiff, and the oath is to be sworn by the one who denies. And if the plaintiff has only one witness, his testimony should be accepted. The plaintiff should also swear on the oath. Okay, this is the understanding of the Umar. And the oath which is the yameen, the judge should not resort to asking the defendant to swear an oath except when the plaintiff is unable to establish the proof. What it means by that is, if the proof is given, then you cannot let the defendant go just because he took the oath. The oath is only in the cases when plaintiff was not able to provide the proof for that. So look, when we are talking about all those things, sometimes it looks like, man, it is tiring and burdensome to go into these kind of details. The purpose of that, me talking about these things like that, is so we understand that how comprehensively Islam deals with life affairs. This is the way that we can build if we have lost some confidence in understanding of the deen and understanding that Islam is a comprehensive way of life, it provides us solutions for all the things. So Islam is a way of life given to us. Let's not be the one who have secularized the deen in a manner that Islam is for my salah, zakah, hajj, and my dhikr and all those things. But when it comes to my mu'amalat, my dealing with the people, or my akhlaq, or my mannerism, or my food, and all those things, then we look at other way and look for some other people's opinions, whether it's one individual, a bunch of individuals, or majority, whatsoever kind of rules which are deciding what is right and what is wrong. So that's the part that we should understand when we are talking about that. And there's another aspect in judgments, is called circumstantial evidence. Now, Umar went into even gave details like that. For example, we talked about Amwas, that when the plague happened in the time of Umar al-Khattab, when we're talking about the economic crises in the time of Umar, one of the things he passed on was, if you find, because there's casualties were in masses, so if you find 2 people are dead and they are related and one can inherit from the other, how do you tell who died first? So he went to the detail about look into circumstantial evidence. For example, if the body was on the top of the one body was on top of the first one, so the one who was on top, you consider that he died later. So the one on the bottom. So this way, what happens is this, and I'll explain to you how important it is even in today's circumstances also, because they can inherit from each other, right? So if they can inherit from each other, Let's say it's the father and the son. If the son would have died first, then father can inherit from him. And now father has died, so whatever he could have inherited, then the inheritance of the fathers can inherit from him. Right? And if it's the other way around, then the father died first and the son afterwards, then this son would have inherited, and now this son's family would inherit the share that he inherited from his father. And this is a whole detail of inheritance talk. Sometime, inshallah, we can discuss that as well. Why am I bringing this up today like this? It's important for us to understand. Look, what's happening in Gaza, when the people are dying in masses like this, you don't think that there's an issue of inheritance can come up now? Who died first, who died later? So this is why it's important for us to understand even these kind of sometimes minor details as well. Now, another aspect of that is sometimes it happens is a judge is aware of what has happened in a case that's brought to him. And Umar mentioned about this clearly, that the prior knowledge of the judge with regard to had punishment is not regarded as an evidence, which entitles him to issue a judgment against the accused. So Abu Musa received a letter from Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh, mentioning that he said, do not rule on the basis of your prior knowledge, speculation or suspicion. So Abdurrahman bin Auf said to Umar, what if the judge has seen somebody's killed or somebody's stole? So the response of Umar was, then his witness will be like any other witness. Not just because he's a judge, so he'll just make the judgment based on his own witness, everything. So that will be considered as, okay, there's a one witness who says this. Are you following what I'm saying here? This is important for us to understand. That the judge's knowledge should not be the one overcome the decision of the judge. That will be just another piece of information to make a judgment. Okay. And you can imagine this way, right? And there are many examples will be coming up, not necessarily about the judge, but about cases of zina, for example. So you need 4 witnesses. Now, let's say the judge is one of the witnesses. Just because he is a witness does not mean now he can just override everything else and he says zina happened. He still needs 4 witnesses. The 4 witnesses is a must from the Sharia perspective. That's what it means by that. It's an important thing to understand that this, the knowledge of the judge should not override everything else that the Sharia expects from us. Okay? Okay, another thing about that is, if there is, somebody has committed a sin, Shar'an, it is better to conceal the sin than to take it to the light of the people and start showing off to the people. Okay? And there is a report that talks about that Shurahbil ibn Samit al-Kindi, who was guarding the border near Al-Madain, addressed the people and said, "O people, you are in land where drinking is widespread. And there are many women. If any one of you commits a crime that deserves a had punishment, let him come to us so that we may carry out the punishment on him. For that will be his purification." So that reached to Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh, and Umar said, it is not permissible for you to tell the people to remove the concealment of Allah who has concealed them. See, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it has happened. There were people who committed sin like zina, and they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for purification. And you find that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is turning his face away from them first. The 2 incidents are mentioned, one about the woman, one about the man who came. When the man came, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked the Sahaba, check if he's crazy, he's majnoon. Check if he's drunk. And then he kept asking, and he said, go talk to his people around about his situation. And when Rasulullah asked specific questions that show that yes, he did commit. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after he was adamant, he asked 4 times that he wanted to be purified. Rasulullah listened to him, and then later on the had was applied on him. So Rasulullah was continuously giving him a chance to go away. And this is why the Umar was talking about, he's not talking from his own whims and desires. Rather, he's talking from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I was going to go talk about the rulings of the punishments in the time of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. I already spent half an hour, and that's what we wanted to do, the half an hour inshallah. So I guess we'll require one more lecture on the judiciary aspect of it, which will be more about how the judgments were passed in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. And inshallah we'll talk next week, so one more talk will be required. If there's any questions or comments that was talked about today on the previous talks, inshallah I'll try to answer them.